and welcome to Wild at Heart. This is the show for men, by men, about men here at ROLAND Media, real, authentic, uncut. And my name is Roland, and I'm very happy that you tuned in on this channel. We're gonna discuss almost weekly or different topics with different men who in men's work. Sometimes we have panelists, so a larger group. Sometimes I have a one-to-one. Yeah, and before we start and get started about today's topic, please press the subscribe button. That helps me absolutely. And also the bell so to get informed when we upload a new video. Okay, so today's topic is how to deal with triggers. And I'm very happy that I can welcome for this topic, Richard West, an interesting person I met last year at a men's festival. He's from the UK, lives in Austria, actually my home country. And we're going to discuss, as I said, how to deal with triggers, because we all triggers every day and distracted from what we are doing. So stay tuned and listen to our discussion, Richard West, how to deal with triggers. Yeah, hello, welcome to the Wild at Heart show. This is a show, real, authentic, uncut, for men, by men, about men here at ROLAND Media. And I'm very happy to welcome my dear friend, Richard West. As I already mentioned, I met Richard, I guess a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago. Yeah, a year ago at the men's festival. And I joined his lectures. It was very, very interesting. So I'm very happy, Richard, that you're here today. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Roland. I really love all your podcasts, and I'm really happy to be a part of that.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, today's topic is, I guess it's a very important one because really many people are struggling with that, myself too, on and on. Although I'm working on my development, I'm also a coach, but sometimes I'm triggered, especially when it's an emotional trigger with somebody that is very close to me, my partner or something like that. So today's topic is how to deal with triggers. And before we start, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background, Richard?
Sure. I mean, my background is originally in psychology, and I've also become, along my path, a spiritual facilitator, which means I facilitate the deeper energies which are going on underneath somebody's process. So we would tend to look at triggers, for example, and then work with the process going on underneath those in order to liberate ourselves from certain patterns. And yeah, I live in Austria. I've been here for about 10 years, and I'm originally from the UK. And yeah, I live here with my family, but I'm also in a tiny house here out in nature, and loving that.
Very nice, Richard. Very nice, Richard.
Yeah.
Before we go to triggers, what's the difference between UK people and Austrian people in general?
Oh God, goodness. I would say, and I hope this doesn't trigger people out there. The Austrians, in my experience, tend to be more exact than the English. I experience the English as being a little bit more laid back.
Okay.
And of course, both of those things have their positive and not so positive sides.
Yeah, actually, British people. I think I worked many years for British companies. They're very polite, probably very polite, but also very tough when they're on the football ground. Okay, so maybe maybe some people are triggered now. So we're into the topic. Richard, in general, what are triggers? Where are they coming from?
Well, triggers, the way I would define triggers are that they are an activation of a pain which is already within you. So this may be a pain which has been caused by some kind of event in your past, and that has caused you to react in a way where you are coping with that pain. Mm-hmm. And what a trigger does is it activates that pain to be brought up to the surface again. And it usually happens as a reflection of something that happens in your environment, something that somebody says to you is very often, as you said, a close one, who will do something which activates that pain.
Okay, got it. So it's more, a trigger is something that comes from outside, from an event or a person or whatever, and it gives you feedback about your inner world, more or less.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, when I give workshops on this topic, I always continually drive home the point that a trigger, though it's activated by the outside, it's an inner event. So it's almost always coming from a pain that is already within you. Because when people realize that, there's an impulse then to take responsibility for that and not just throw the blame on the outside, which is something that's very important in dealing with triggers.
And especially when you're in a family situation or in a business situation with colleagues, how do we identify a person that is already triggered? Or how does a person look like who is triggered by something, maybe by myself or by somebody else or another event? How can I recognize a triggered person?
Well, there's no one clear and concise answer to that, because different people will react in different ways to triggers. Some will become angry, some will become very quiet, and come very inward on themselves. Some will look very uncomfortable. I guess the best definition is a sudden change in behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
On the behaving patterns, like, I don't know, some get aggressive, some get passive, or some maybe try to escape.
Exactly, and that will depend on that person's trauma response. You know, you have the fight, the flight, the freeze response, and the fawn response, and they're all coping mechanisms to deal with the pain that person may be feeling.
Yeah, and Richard, why do we get triggered so easily? Is this because there is a really huge pain inside, or why we get triggered so easily?
Well, the short answer to that is because we are attached to a certain outcome. That means we need the situation or a person in our life to be a certain way in order to feel loved or safe or these kind of things. That's why we get triggered so easily. And the other reason for it is because we've gotten very good at avoiding our pain. You know, these coping mechanisms are built up from childhood for a reason, so that our systems don't get overwhelmed with them. But then if we become so dependent on them and so avoidant of the pain that we're experiencing in each moment, they tend to just build up. And the more and more they build up, the more easy it will be to just activate one to the surface.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Richard, you're working with both, with men and women. I do a lot of men's work. I just focus on men. Do you think that there is a difference between men and women? Because from my own behaving and from other men, I know that men are not used to work on their shadow sides and the dark sides, on the pain, less than women. Do you think that men are more triggered or easily to be triggered than women?
That's a really good question. I think that I cannot say that men are more easily triggered than women, but they tend to respond to triggers in different ways. So the way a woman responds to a trigger tends to be more more outwardly emotional,
Mhm.
whereas the way a man tends to respond to triggers will be to become quieter, to go more inwards, or it's like the two extremes, or to completely burst into anger.
Yeah, yeah.
But the anger tends to happen when that's sort of built up over time. Yeah.
Okay. But I remember, when my girlfriend, and I mentioned in the beginning, um, I get easily triggered by somebody who's very close to me because I take more care.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said in the beginning, we attach to receive love, to be hugged, and all this things. And what happened to myself is, as a man, I learned not to fight back, because otherwise maybe I hurt the other person I kill. So I get more passive, or I'm in escape mode. And then my girlfriend said, "What are you really doing is passive aggression." Because
Okay.
you don't want to communicate with me. I triggered something, but you're not going to communicate with me. Yeah, you're escaping, or you just get passive, and you get, and they call it passive aggression. I didn't understand in the beginning. So can you tell a little bit about passive aggression too, by triggers?
Sure, sure. I mean, passive aggression um, is really when, so usually when we're being aggressive, you could say you're trying to send a message or to subtly punish the other person or that kind of thing. So if you're being passive aggressive, there would always be that kind of undertone. Um, so just saying something that subtly implies that that person is at fault or something like that. I wouldn't say that being quiet and avoiding communication is passive aggressive in itself. Um, I would say that that is a trauma response or coping mechanism. It's also, like I kind of alluded to before, it is a way that men tend to process emotional pain. They tend to take longer than women, and so there's very often this kind of quiet phase where things are going round, and it's difficult for us to really communicate that until that's kind of sorted itself out in our minds.
But sometimes, women who are very emotional and very open in communication, sometimes they give the feedback, "Oh, this is disrespectful because you're avoiding communication. You don't want to communicate with me. This is disrespect."
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, right. Well, I mean, they're seeing the world from um, their own perspective as people who find it easier to communicate emotionally, then perhaps that might be expected from the man as well. So as men, it then becomes our responsibility, and that's very important to take responsibility for that and not say, well, the women have to realize this. You know, it's not their responsibility to see what's going on in us. So we take the responsibility to say, hey, look, I do want to talk with you about this, but I need some time to sort it out in my own head, to become clearer on it. Are you willing to give me that space until I can talk to you about it?
I guess there's something very important you mentioned, Richard, is as a man taking responsibility, being in the driving seat, and not letting the women assume or guess what's inside, and then being disappointed when she is on the wrong path. Because this
Right.
happened to me, to be honest, with me many times, because I didn't know how to express myself, and then I was always very disappointed because the other person didn't guess it how it really was, or didn't.
Right. Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is the number one key to any conscious relating is to take responsibility responsibility for your own stuff, and not project it or make somebody else responsible for your well-being, for sure. Yeah, and that's the most empowering thing we can do for ourselves, is to take responsibility.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, Richard, as I said, I'm since years I'm working on myself and trying to improve. I'm still not a master. It's an ongoing, maybe a never-ending process. So sometimes I realize when somebody triggers me, sometimes I don't. It's depending on the mood, depending on the situation. So can you explain to our audience a little bit what's going on when we get triggered? How do we recognize that something, an event or somebody triggers us? What's going on in our head? Do we have an inner conversation first, an emotion, and how do we recognize this, that we don't get trapped? And maybe we've in the next step, realizing it, and the second step is getting out of it, not avoiding it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as you said, I don't think any of us are masters, unless we're constantly learning. I think that's the mastering in itself, because triggers are there to be automatic. They are automatic responses in reaction to a painful stimulus, and therefore there's an element of unconsciousness in it. So in the beginning, it might be that we just look back on the situation and see, oh yeah, no, I recognize that at that point I just automatically reacted to the situation. I wasn't really aware of what I was doing, and now I can see that that's how it went, and that will help in the beginning, because that will help you to recognize situations in the future. And then you can teach yourself to interrupt that switch that gets flicked when you go into autopilot, that automatic pain avoidance mode. And it's really helpful to train yourself to become more aware of your body, because usually when we're triggered, the body reacts in some way. You may feel a tightness in the stomach, for example, or a constriction of the heart or the throat, and that's the best signpost to know when you're being triggered. So if you can become more and more aware of your body and how it's reacting to its environment, then that's the most powerful way of knowing when that's happening. And then when it happens, you can interrupt that automatic pattern and ask yourself the question, what am I feeling? Or the questions, what am I feeling right now? How am I feeling it? And what is it that I need from the situation?
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
Richard, does it make sense to make a trigger event collection, meaning finding out if there's a certain pattern, like I'm reacting on certain words or certain events or certain persons, to find out what's the root cause?
Does it make sense to do that?
Yeah, once you get triggered, to sit down and write down what triggered me, what were my emotions, maybe the person was involved or the event, just to find out a certain pattern, because it comes again and again and again.
Right. Well, if you want to overcome triggers, then yes, that definitely makes sense, because the only way we overcome it is through awareness. Mm-hmm. And yeah, certainly sitting down and writing that out is going to be a really good start. The real work is going to be what I would term energetic. It's going to be about feeling into where that tightness is in your body, what the emotion is, and allowing that reality to be as it is without needing it to go away, because that's when we break that seeking pleasure, avoiding pain kind of pattern that we all have, and it allows us to embrace our reality as it is, and that's when we become the master of our reality, not only with triggers but with other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as I've been talking before, that for men it might be a little bit more difficult because we are not used to analyze ourselves emotionally. We do it on a rational path, but not emotionally. Most men are not used to really recognize the emotion, name them, express them. Does it make sense to get help from a coach from outside?
Yes, to a certain degree. So it makes sense to get help from a coach if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like the situation that you're in is not resolving, if you're feeling powerless in that, then it definitely helps to get help from a coach. But the role of the coach then should be to show you how to deal with those situations yourself. So how to empower yourself in those situations.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
just in the driving seat, not giving responsibility away. Because
Right, exactly, yeah. Not the coach. I mean, my responsibility as a coach is not to tell people the answers. Is to get them to figure it out for themselves by asking the right questions and so forth. Yeah.
what is your message to people, especially to men who try to avoid or suppress triggers and emotions because it's combined? What's the risk of it?
Well, the risk is that the pain and the layers of pain just keep building and building and building until they become destructive in some way. And with men, that usually means anger. You kind of just explode, and this, that's can be very destructive, or addiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
leads to addiction. Ways of avoiding our reality.
yeah. Well, I see this very often in my job, especially when I was working with businessmen, and they're not used to express their emotions because they never learned, don't show your pain, don't show your sadness, don't show your weakness.
Right.
And it
Right.
always ended up, most of them, it ends up in addiction. Sometimes you don't recognize, you don't see it because maybe it's a kind of social accepted addiction, like, I don't know, running marathons every weekend or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Don't feel the pain and to feel yourself, or okay, other ones they're drinking more or they're eating or whatever it is. But I see it very often that people just fall into an addiction and suppress their emotions. Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Can triggers ever go away, or when they're gone, you were enlightened?
Um, I personally, I I believe that you can process out the underlying traumas which are mostly responsible for triggers, and get to a point where those are more or less healed. However, I don't believe that triggers ever completely go away. I know one or two people that I would consider to be pretty self-realized, and they still get triggered. The difference is that the process for them lasts a couple of seconds rather than weeks or months or years, and because they go straight into it,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel into it, and it doesn't their emotions and their pain is not defining who they are, because they just allow it to be within them, and then it goes again.
Okay. So would you agree to say when somebody or something triggers you, first of all, say thank you, because they show you a mirror and show you something, I give you feedback, hey, there's something, you should have a look at it, be more aware of it, and maybe deal with it, work with it?
Well, I would definitely agree that gratitude helps. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily something to force, and to say thank you first of all, because that could be that it feels inauthentic.
Mm.
Because if you're angry in that moment, you don't want to say thank you to somebody, right?
But afterwards, I mean, when the healing process, when you
Right.
realize what's going on and you're working on yourself, you're in the healing process, coming back maybe to this person and say, hey, thank you. I'm sorry if what happened a week ago or a day ago or whatever, and then start my healing process. And things.
Exactly, and that comes with the recognition that that person has done you a service, because they have mirrored or reflected something that needs working on in you, and you've then gone away and done the work on that.
Yeah.
So certainly acknowledging their part in that can be very healing and empowering for both parties. But it has to be done in an authentic way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is there's always a reason why something happens. And something happens to somebody. Even when in the first moment we are embarrassed, we don't like it, we behave badly because we're triggered, but there's always a reason why we meet somebody or something happens. I strongly believe.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, in my experience, people, especially in relationships, they tend to attract people who will have, let's say, compatible pain. So those those painful experiences and patterns tend to bounce off each other and perpetuate each other. So what was the original question again?
No, I say there's always a reason why.
There's always a reason. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I personally believe that that we as that our purpose on this planet is to self-realize, and by that I mean to realize ourselves as more than the situations we find ourselves in, more than the body, more than the emotions, even more than our mind. And that is only going to be done by being in situations that show us where we are blocked from that. And so if we're dedicated to that, we're going to attract situations which are painful.
Absolutely. I can absolutely relate to that, Richard. You know, I'm very open now, and because last relationship, it was an on and off, and I was triggered so many times and I always kicked out. I couldn't deal with the situation. I didn't like the situation until I found out, oh, she triggers me. Let's have a look at it. And to make a long story short, she was abused by her dad, and I couldn't deal with the situation, and I didn't show any empathy because I couldn't deal. I felt a lot of pain inside, but I couldn't deal with it. I didn't ask any question because I didn't want to be too curious. I didn't know how to deal with the situation. And you know what? After 3 years in this relationship, this was really both sides to be triggered us each. I found out that I was abused too many years, from my 5th to my 11th year, and I didn't know it for over 40 years. You know, so I'm so grateful for this, and I'm so grateful. Even if it was a hard time in this relationship, I'm so grateful for this. So she gave me the chance with all these triggers to start my healing process. So first of all, to be aware what happened in my past, but then starting my healing process.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
brilliant.
gentlemen, my message to you, gentlemen, out there when you're listening is when somebody triggers you, especially your partner, maybe you should have a deeper look why you're triggered and what is triggered. You never know.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think also what I would take from that is the importance of being able to hold space when other people get triggered
Yeah,
as well.
very good point. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. And it comes down to the responsibility thing again, because um if somebody else gets triggered by your actions, you are not responsible for their healing of
No.
that trigger. However, you can be accountable for your behavior. So there's a difference between accountability and responsibility. So you can be responsible and accountable for your behavior, but it would be disempowering for that person for you to try and fix their pain if they're experiencing it.
Absolutely.
So the best thing you can do for them is to hold space for their process.
I know what is holding space, but maybe can you explain to our audience, because it's so important, holding space. What do you exactly mean by holding space for somebody? Because it's very often needed,
Right.
just holding space.
Holding space is it is allowing whatever process is taking place to happen of its own accord. And so it requires a great deal of trust. Um, there are many very powerful spiritual facilitators out there. When they sit down with clients, they just listen. And just doing that is extremely powerful in itself. And so that's the main crux of holding space is being prepared to sit in that process with that person and be with them in it without injecting your own stuff into it. Now, occasionally, you may feel to ask a question, and that can be also an extremely powerful way to facilitate that process. But the crux of holding space is, I mean, we could say it's a more feminine thing to do, because you're being the vessel
Mm,
in
absolutely.
essence.
Yeah.
Um, but it is it is absolutely needed in all relationships, whether they be romantic ones or family ones or work ones. It is so needed in our society, that skill.
Absolutely, Richard. Absolutely. And I see it very often, and it happened to me too in the past, when I was not aware about holding spaces. When you come as a man in a situation that's quite emotional with your partner, for example, or whatever, uh, as a man, we are very solution focused. We always try, we have to deliver a solution, we have to facilitate the solution.
Right,
But that's
right,
what I
right.
ask for. It's just holding space, being just quiet, and give the person the time that he or she needs to go through this process, not to push it, not to slow it down. Just holding space, just be,
Right,
yeah, not,
right.
not not trying to fix something.
Exactly. I've had explorations around this myself, because I find it very easy to put my finger on a on the underlying problem of the situation and then direct it towards a solution. when it comes to psychological processes, especially. And I found that if I just sit back and trust a little bit more in the process itself, it always reaches a solution in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I can help it with my more masculine focused energy is to say is to take the different elements of the process that's going on and call it out and say, well, to me it looks like this. You know, it seems like you're feeling that, or you know, just call out what you're seeing. And that can be a way that the masculine energy can be put into that space holding.
Yeah. I remember one of my teachers, Teach Nathan, whom I met in Blum Village years ago. He said, when you somebody love and you see your beloved one is suffering, just say, darling, I am there for you, and then shut up. And he said, and then the healing process immediately started.
Right, exactly. Yeah. How incredible to have somebody who's prepared to sit with you in whatever painful process you're going through. I mean, that's all anybody could ask for, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Being present, consciously present. Richard, are you having any upcoming workshops about helping people overcoming triggers and have a deep look about the triggers and to deal with it?
Sure, yeah. There's a Trigger Mastery Day workshop happening in Vienna on Saturday, the 17th of June.
17th of June,
17th of June. That goes from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We'll be taking a deep dive, a much deeper dive into the process behind why triggers activate and how to process them through in an empowering way, and then also how to express yourself on the other side. That's how the day workshops look. So the next one's in Vienna, and then later in the year there should be one in Linz as well in Austria, and perhaps an online one. We'll see.
Okay, so I guess your events are launched at your website, and people can register on your website. Okay, so we in the description you will find, ladies and gentlemen, you will find Richard's website where you can see what is offering, what is doing, and you can also book his workshops, which I absolutely highly recommend to you guys if you're not already mastered when you get triggered.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. The website is partingthewaves.com.
Yeah, and we will also bring it in the description, and people will have to.
Yeah.
Any final tip you have for people who about triggers?
I would say the final tip is not to beat yourself up if you get triggered and go into this unconscious process. The important thing is just to keep bringing awareness to it, and it's not going to fix itself immediately. It'll be something that happens over time. So don't feel bad, don't feel guilty if you lapse into old behaviors. Just keep bringing the awareness back to it. Keep working at it.
Okay, Richard, thank you so much. I highly enjoyed our conversation, and it's always good to listen to you and learn something new, because as I said in the beginning, we all get triggered. Some more, some less, but it's always challenging, and actually it distracts us from different stuff. And as we came across, we said triggers are very, very good feedback. There's a reason why you get triggered, and the reason is maybe you should have a deeper look what triggers you, why you're triggered, and there's something to, I won't say to fix, but something to heal and to work on. Absolutely. Richard,
exactly.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Roland. A pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, this was Richard West about how to deal with triggers. I guess a very important topic, and maybe you agree with it. If you need help, please go below in the subscription. You find the link with Richard's website and book his workshops, which I highly recommend. And please, I'm very happy if you recommend the channel, ROLAND Media, and if you press the subscribe button. It really helps us, the work we're doing for men, and also hit the bell so you get information when I upload a new video. Thanks a lot for joining Wild at Heart. This is a show for men, by men, about men, real, authentic, uncut. Thanks a lot. You're Roland. Thanks.